Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Okay, just give it another minute to allow everyone to jump in. I hope everyone is well. Happy Monday. All right, let's get started. So this morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, we're going to start off by doing 2 different types of breathing exercises. And the point of this will sort of then shift into our discussion around our yoga tool belt. But one is going to be energizing and one will be calming. And then I'll ask you to think about which felt which afterwards. So find a comfortable seat. Find a tall spine. Let's just do a cleansing breath. So big inhale through the nose. And then just let everything out. Just release it. Wonderful. Let's do one more of those. Just a deep breath in through the nose. And then just let it go. Great. So bird breath is first. Bring your arms down by your side, just like your wings. And we'll take an inhale as a sweep our wings up. And then as we exhale, 3 flaps. Yeah, that's it. 2 more times like that. Inhale. Great. Let's add one more exhale on this next one. Big breath in. 4 times out. Great. All right, moving into sounding breath. So in a moment, I'll ask you to take your hands and cover your ears. And I really do want you to cover them up as best as you can to sort of block out the external. And we're going to switch our breathing from exhaling through the mouth to exhaling through the nose. And if that's uncomfortable at any point, of course, you can breathe out of your mouth. Okay, we'll do it 3 times. Here we go. Great. And as you are ready, feel free to remove your hands. Okay. So bird breath or sounding breath? Can go ahead and throw it up in the chat. Which one do you think was calming? And this could totally be interpreted, right? We all feel different things in our body, but just out of curiosity, which one did you imagine that one to be? Yeah, interesting. Cool. Wonderful. Thanks everyone for sharing. So you can definitely find both of these in the children's guide. Sounding breath is listed under calming and bird breath is listed under energizing. One thing I love to just sort of also share is, it really comes back to our intention, because one thing that I find with bird breath, for example, and several of our energizing poses, as a matter of fact, is that in a sense, the energy, the creativity, the sort of playfulness is really also what drives the energy up. But if you elongate those exhales, right, you could easily like make it a little bit more quick and rapid to really boost the energy, or and that totally changes it, right? So just knowing that you can also play within the scope of these, depending on what your students need. So that takes us right into the opening question for today, which is, what is your yoga tool belt and how does it support you as an educator? I'd love to hear voices. So if anyone would be willing to share how and what this means to you at this point, you can drop your name in the chat. Otherwise, if you want to just share ideas in the chat, that's great as well. Just give it a couple moments to allow you to choose what you would like to do. So the yoga tool belt. What is the yoga tool belt and how does it support us as educators? Kira, thanks for being willing to share. Kira Rose.
I kind of, when I hear yoga tool belt, like I think about like literally like being in therapy when they tell you you need to have a tool belt of like coping mechanisms. I think about that like in the context of being an educator or just holding space for like a bunch of people that you're responsible for and you're facilitating their development. It's like kids need help self-regulating. They're not, the expectation for them to do it by themselves is not really appropriate. So your job is to like, it's like the same thing, that tool belt that you would use to self-regulate or to as coping mechanisms for yourself. You're like holding that for them almost. And that's
yeah, very cool.
The way that I think about it.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. I love this sort of duality that it's a tool belt that we carry with us that we can kind of utilize, but we're also in the same sense modeling what it is to our students, our kids that we're working with, so that they can start to develop their own yoga tool belts as well. Yeah, wonderful. Diana, did you want to add to that?
Sure. I think it's very multifaceted. It's having kids try to understand what they're feeling and how and tools to help them cope with some of those feelings if they're feeling kind of, agitated or angry or sad. And then just the physical component of the movement patterns of the yoga positions. Can do many things, strengthen, relax, do a lot of, and the breathing too is real critical for teaching kids.
Thanks so much, Diana. That's very, very well put. And you're really kind of rounding out the part of this discussion that I love, which is it's not only the benefits of all these different poses, breathing exercises, games, etc., but it's also that in using the tools, we are also sharing with our students ways in which to notice emotions, for example, and then which, like feeling empowered to know which tool they can use because they understand what the benefit is or the utility of those things. Great. And I'm seeing some wonderful ideas in the chat as well. So allowing for flexibility, resources, you can go to it in all the scenarios of being an educator. All of our resources, including poses, breathing techniques, relaxation, having a repertoire of yoga related activities in case you need to be flexible if things don't go the way you planned. When things don't go the way you planned. And it might be super handy to have a calming breath if you as the teacher need it. Yes, so again, circling back to that real important piece that was shared, that this is for you as well, right? This takes us all the way back to the beginning of the course, which is who and how are you showing up as? Are you utilizing your tool belt in order to then be flexible in the moment, adapt as needed? Wonderful. Let's see, just real quick. Tensha, did you have anything to add? I just saw your name pop in.
Yeah, you touched base on what I was going to say, that, we use the tool belt as a metaphor, but if we really go back to like a physical tool belt, all of the tools in the tool belt are useful, right? You have a screwdriver, you have a hammer, you have nails, they all work. However, not for every task. And what you just said, it's helpful for children to learn that what are you feeling right now, in which of all these tools you have all of these choices, and pick the one that might work for you. If that doesn't work, as the other person just said, being flexible and choosing something else. And for
Yeah.
example, like if you're ever going to go on stage or do public speaking, somebody might need to really ground themselves before they do that. And another person might need to just jump around and shake it off. And so there's different tools, there's different coping mechanisms. So it's great to show children that there isn't just one way. And that might change just from morning to night, from today to tomorrow. But, you know, if they have a couple themselves and we can keep adding, they can choose what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And also that application, right, of it's not just in yoga class, but this might serve you when if you're a performing artist, or before a test, or if you have to give a speech, or any situation, right? It really also goes to show, again, how important it is that we lay that foundation for our students, that whatever they learn on the mat, they also can take it off the mat and into their lives. Great. Yay, wonderful responses, everyone. I'll just read this last one from Francesca. Self-implemented resources that students can utilize to encourage self-awareness and strengthen self-regulation. Yeah, again, I think that really definitely mirrors so much of what was shared around this. So just a couple of little things that I always love to share during week 6. One thing is kind of bringing it back to our lesson plans and reminding ourselves of the adaptability and flexibility there. And one question that I sometimes will get is, what do you do if you are pressed for time? Or is there like one component that's more important than the other? That's a tricky one to answer. So what I always try to say is, and I sort of say this from a place of experience where I've taught anywhere from an hour and a half class to like a 10-minute class. So you really do have to be able to modify, but I always find that you can still do breathing, some movement, and relaxation. So the key 3. So wherever you are, whatever it is that you're doing, if you can always make sure that there's breath work, movement, and relaxation. And I leave movement kind of open, because that could be, a few poses. It could be one of the warm-up exercises that kind of includes a lot of the poses. Technically, it could be a game that also includes lots of different movement. So that one's kind of open to interpretation, just in terms of like what you have to do for that class. But hopefully that gives you a little bit of something to think about, and the importance of balancing active and relaxation practices no matter what. Okay. The other thing that I just want to reiterate with respect to the yoga tool belt is remembering your audience. So being able to vary your delivery is really important. What's going to resonate with a preschooler may not be the same as what's going to resonate to a 5th grader. However, if you have a mixed group, let's say you're teaching an after-school program and you have preschoolers and 6th graders, been there, all in the same group, what do you do in that situation? So the advice, or the sort of tip there, is always plan for the youngest, because now that we've kind of come out of the development and thinking about brain-based learning as well as anatomy, physiology, we always want to make sure that our youngest student is supported, because our older students can take on a leadership role, or like even be a mentor to the younger students, versus disconnecting from our younger students' worlds, if that makes sense. So just being mindful about, the setup for your classes, the way you're going to deliver your theme and concept, what kinds of imagery and creative wording are you going to use, all of those different types of things. Okay, great. So here's what we're going to do next, everybody. We are going to head into a breakout room for a little practice teach opportunity, but I first wanted to give a demonstration just to help clarify what this is. So in your children's guide, there are 2 warm-ups that I want to bring to your attention: yoga pose pattern and yoga pose repetition. Okay, and there's a slight difference between them. So yoga pose pattern is very teacher driven, meaning we all show up to Miss Harmony's class and I'm like, okay, everyone, let's move into our pattern. Today we're going to do rock, table, cow, cat. Great. And then we do it. So it's sort of like a preset pattern that I'm leading everyone through. Yoga pose repetition is more student led. So what happens during yoga pose repetition is that, let's say I go first and I'm like, let's all do mountain. Great, mountain pose. And then Diana would go next and Diana says star pose. Okay, great. So we do mountain and then star. And then after Diana's pose, it's Heidi's turn. Heidi, what would you want to do? Heidi wants to do tree, mountain, star, tree. So you keep building. It's a continual recycle of the poses, always beginning back at the first one, and you're adding one at a time. Okay, does that kind of make sense so far? Okay. Here's the slight difference in terms of like our purposes right now in the breakout room. When you're doing this with your students, oftentimes they're not necessarily teaching the pose. They're just like choosing a pose and then you're there to help guide and support. Not that they couldn't if that was an option. But for teaching purposes today during our breakout rooms with the educator hat on, when it is your turn, I want you to teach the pose. Okay, so if I had mountain, I would actually set us up, take us all the way through mountain, do breath work, etc. And then the next person would teach their pose, etc. Okay, so we're playing the sort of game, if you will, but we're making sure that we actually give each person time to teach. Okay, so let me know, let me see, I'm just gonna do a quick scroll through. Give me a thumbs up if it would be helpful for me to do an actual demonstration of this with 2 people right now. Give me a thumbs up. And if you're like, no, I'm good, then just don't give a thumbs up. Okay. Okay, I see a fair amount of thumbs up. So we'll do a super fast, we'll do just a 2-person. Can I have one person who would be willing to help me out real quick, who would be willing to teach a pose, just one side of a pose right now with the whole group? Heidi, I see you. Okay, perfect. So here's what we're gonna do. So Heidi, I'll do mountain. I'm gonna teach mountain. My cue that it'll be your turn is I'm gonna say, let's take a breath in and a breath out. Then it'll be your turn, yeah? Okay. If everybody wants to just watch really quick, that works. If you feel like you want a little quick movement break, you're more than welcome to join us. Ooh, let me close this. All right. So here we go, mountain pose. Let's start with our feet hips distance apart. Reach up and touch your shoulders, your ears, reach up towards the sky, stretch your mountain fingertips, and then bring them down by your side. Feel really strong in your mountain pose. Let's take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Okay, Heidi, what pose should we do next?
Let's do tree. So coming from your mountain pose, bring your hands to your waist. Now you're going to take your right foot and make it a kickstand, just like the kickstand to a bike. So imagine that you are a tree, so your feet have roots growing down into the ground, and then feel that trunk growing tall up to the sky. And if you want to add branches, reach one arm up and then the other. Imagining you have branches, feeling those leaves swing in the breeze. If you want to sway a little bit, you can. And then slowly bring those arms back down to your waist and bring your feet and we'll switch to the other side.
Awesome. I'm going to pause you just so we don't have to do the other side for time's sake. That was great. So then if it was a third person's time, what I would do just to kind of guide us is I would say, okay, so we have mountain, then we have tree, and then whose turn is it next? And we would add on and then kind of recycle through the poses as well. Okay. Thanks, Heidi. I appreciate the support there. Does that, now can I get a thumbs up from everyone? Are we clear on what's happening? Okay, wonderful. I personally find having a little cue that you can all agree on to kind of know when you're going to make the shift can be really helpful. So I usually end with breath work. So if you want to come up with that as a group or you want to utilize breath work, you're more than welcome to as well. we are going to be in groups of 5. And just in case you're like, oh, Harmony, my brain, I really can't think about what poses I want to do right now. Here are some poses that you can choose from. Preset for you already. I would also suggest that you go in order by ABC order by first name. Just that way it's already done for you and you don't have to necessarily know who's going next. All right, let me get the rooms ready and then I'll let you know the timing. Oh, we're gonna do groups of 4 because we have exactly the right amount for 4. Okay. All right, let's see, it's 50. So this should only take about 8 minutes. Should be less because we have less people, but I'll be popping in and out just to make sure. So let's go ahead and start the rooms. Okay, have fun.
Harmony, do you mind sending me the room again? My computer seems to not be
Let's
sending
see.
me. Sorry.
No worries. I'm gonna try, I can only move you to a different room. So let's try this.
Okay. My internet's so bad right now, so I think that's probably why.
Did you get the request?
Don't have a request. Because it usually just pops up and it just links
Yeah,
to that next
yeah.
room.
Okay, and that's not happening. Let me try again. I just sent you another one.
Oh no. It's not sending me anywhere.
So strange. Do you have any other windows open? Like maybe just make sure that there's nothing else that's going to block your little notification. I mean, it shouldn't, but just in case.
No, I just had a Google, because I have Google Docs open because I take notes, but I'll exit out of that. But I just have one Zoom.
Okay, let's see. Also, let me check. Debbie, are you there? I still see you in the room as well. Oh, there goes
No,
Debbie.
she's gone. I was like, I can do it with you. That's probably not what you want to do. But
no, actually, I was just going to recommend, because everyone's probably settling into their rooms already.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Is that all right with you? Perfect.
I am fine. I will learn from the best. I'm very new to all this, so this is perfect.
We all learn from each other. Okay, let me just send a quick message to everybody. Okay, we're all set in our rooms. Let's see, let's do. All right, so how about, because there's just 2 of us, do you want to do 2 poses each? So it'll be like me, you kind of situation?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, okay, perfect. And this will be good for anyone watching the recording. They can kind of have an idea of how it works.
Okay, perfect. I might mess up, but that's good.
It's all about the learning. So let's, if it's okay with you, I'll have that breath cue kind of be the switch. Does that work for you, Shannon?
Yes, that works perfect. Okay. I'm trying to back up enough. So
cool. Yeah, I can see most of you. That's good.
Okay,
so let's start with, how about star pose? So bring your feet out nice and wide. Great. And then reach out your other points of your star, and then your head is the 5th star. So now we're going to kind of rock into each part of the star. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the top of our head is 5. Now shine and sparkle your fingertips. Great. Maybe we can be like a tired, sleepy star.
I like that.
And then a really excited star. Shake everything out. Nice. And then take a deep breath in. Deep breath out. Wonderful. And then you can just release your hands down.
Wonderful.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and from star, we're just gonna actually go ahead and move into mountain. So I'm gonna have you guys just scoot your feet a little bit closer together and just really get planted. And just like that star pose, our mountain pose can even have 5 points if you want to go ahead and tap 1 foot on the floor, the other foot, and that is 2. And then we have 3, 4. That 5th point can be the top of our head. We're gonna go ahead and take a nice deep breath in and plant those feet down just like roots in a tree, and go ahead and take a nice deep breath in through your nose and let that all release on your exhale. And just go ahead and take one more deep breath in and exhale out.
Yay, nice. Okay, so first pose is star. Then we go into mountain. From mountain, let's do eagle pose. So bring your hands to your hips, bend into your knees like you're sitting into a chair. Great. Now take one foot and you're gonna just do a little crossover and make a kickstand. Yeah, and then squeeze into your legs so they actually feel like they're pressing in towards one another. You can stay here or reach your arms out to a T shape and then take one arm over the other and give yourself a hug. Nice. Yeah. Or you can bring the hands up and find a twist. So lots of modifications for this one. Take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Okay, let's come back and release. How about our fourth pose?
Okay, so do I go in back into your starfish and then those, or do I go into the fourth one?
You could do either or. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Let me give everyone a update on the time.
Sorry, I was like, oh, I don't know if I was supposed to go back to that first one for the.
No, that's a good point. Okay, when did we leave? 50. Okay, so we should have about two. Wow, that went fast. 2 more minutes.
It did.
Okay. All right. I mean, either way, like what's great is like, let's say there's 10 of us and we get to like the 10th person. That might be a really good opportunity to be like, okay, let's go back to the beginning and just see if we can really remember. But I think right now, because we've just got 3,
Yep.
then you can go from there.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I'm trying to think. We'll do tree pose. So go ahead and plant your left foot down. And I'm going to have you kind of kick your right foot up just like a kickstand if you can't really see. And what I'm going to have you do is place your hands on your hips, and you can take a nice deep breath in, get centered in that tree. And if you want, you can bring your hands to heart center, or if you'd like to get a little crazy and have some branches and your leaves can be shaking in the wind, and just notice how that feels. And go ahead and take a nice deep breath in and exhale that out. Go ahead and place your hands on your hips. Your right foot kickstand can go back down, and I'm going to have you plant your right foot into the ground, roots as a tree, and go ahead and have that left foot turn into your kickstand. Again, you can have your hands at heart center, or if you feel comfortable, you can have 1 branch or 2. They can sway in the wind or stand still. And go ahead and take a nice deep breath in and exhale that out. And go ahead and have your hands back on your hips and put that kickstand down.
Awesome. Okay, let's see if we can remember all of them just one more time.
Okay,
so we had star.
And then we went
Mountain.
Yeah. Eagle. And tree.
Yeah. Oh, that's
well, that would be super fun with little kiddos too. And even high schoolers. This would work for high school too, I feel like. And could get some people laughing and moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Shannon. That was a nice little
brain break. Thank you. I got nervous. I was like, oh, I'm with the instructor. Oh no. Thanks for being flexible.
Oh, you as well. I appreciate it.
Oh, of course.
Okay. All right, we're all coming back.
Okay, perfect. I'll put unmute so it's not too loud. I have a puppy probably going to start barking. Put him in real quick. He's just learning how to ask to go outside. Come on, Mace. Good boy.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We've got just about 25 seconds till we're all here. Okay. Wonderful. All right, I think we're all back. Great, so hopefully that was an opportunity for growth and learning, no matter how it went. Always just, you know, the purpose of these practice teaches and these breakout rooms is really just to, this is kind of a silly metaphor, but you know, it's like if you only ever get a chance to like look at a pair of pants online until you put them on, you're not going to know, like, do I actually really like these? Do they fit me in the way that I want them to fit? Right? Like, then you actually start to sort of think about like what you're going to do with these pants that you just invested in. So similarly, you have all this information and the poses and the tools and the breath work, but until you sort of try it on and put it on and use your voice and try to work through the cues and the languaging, that's when you'll really start to see like, where do I want to shift? Where do I want to modify? Where do I feel comfortable? Where are my successes? That said, does anyone have any questions about the activity or anything I can clarify?
I had a question. I really thought I understood the assignment, and then we started doing it, and I was like, wait a minute, are we all supposed to be doing the poses like consecutively? Like, let's say the third person was going, would they be doing like the first two poses and then teaching their third pose? Is that?
Yeah, that's a good question. That actually came up for Shannon and I as well, and it was a good conversation because, you know, ultimately it's one of those things where, as the facilitator, you know, of the class, if you see that students really need that like reminding of what the poses are, you could have it repeat after every single person. Sometimes in larger groups, what's a fun way is that you might have like 2 or 3 people go at once and then go back and do like a review of all of them. So it's kind of open in terms of the way it actually goes. But essentially you are going back to the beginning each time. It's tricky for this one, Kira, because like we're doing it with the educator hat on. So like if we weren't taking the time to teach it, it would just be like mountain, star. Okay, who's next? Great, let's go back to mountain, star, tree. Who's next? So it goes a lot faster.
Yeah,
so hopefully that helps.
Sorry to interrupt you. The piece that I'm hearing is you are doing the poses like, you know, consecutively, but the difference is whether or not you're going to explicitly like teach and identify and like verbalize each one to make sure everyone remembers, or just kind of like let that be part of like going with the flow.
Yeah. Yes. Thanks, Kara. Anybody else? Any other clarifying questions? If you do have a large group, this is a great one to kind of do as your warm-up / poses, because as you can imagine, if you have 15 students, that's 15 poses that you're doing and you're repeating them. So they're going to be quite, not tired, but they're going to definitely get enough movement to be able to sort of equal what would have been a sequence as well. So, you know, keep that in mind, that if you are working with a large group, sometimes it can be fun as well to like break it up into groups. So if you have, let's say you have 30 kids, if you've introduced this before, maybe you have like a team leader or something, and then you split the groups up into 2 parts, and then they kind of simultaneously do this in smaller groups too. Yeah. Thanks for your question, Patricia. Would you have students take a couple of breaths in each pose? Yeah, so I would say that, you know, we're always, how do I want to word this? Ultimately, we're connecting breath and movement to create that union, that flow. So no matter where we are, no matter what we're teaching, the idea is that we're always connecting breath to movement. So once you've set up the pose, once you've been creative and thought about your development, you do want to kind of land it and ground it in the breath work. And then if you model that as the teacher, you can then kind of offer that to your students as a way for them to remind themselves to take a breath, but also so that they get into the practice that whenever they are in a posture, there is also associated breathing that happens.
I have a question. So I've noticed in like adult classes that I've taken, the inhale and the exhale is mentioned every time. It's like inhale this pose, exhale this pose. And like as I was kind of going through that, and I was doing the Flipgrid assignment too for last week, and I was thinking like, for kids, is that like repetitive? Is that too much to ask of like a kids yoga class to be like really like breathe with me, we're all breathing at the same time? Like, what has your experience been with that?
Yeah, sure. So I think I want to approach this from two perspectives. So one is that a huge piece of the takeaway of yoga is that connection of breath to movement. I mean, it's really at the core, the heart of the physical practice of yoga. So I think encouraging students to be reminded to breathe is really important. But how you remind them to breathe can be different. That's where you can have some versatility. So you might say inhale, exhale. You might say breathe in, breathe out. You might say put your hands on your belly, fill your belly with air, release all that air out of your belly. So you can kind of get creative in how you're including the breath work. And then the only other thing that kind of comes to mind here is the breath work is also what regulates us oftentimes. So within the context of a yoga class, if we've been doing quite a lot of breath work, chances are students are going to really have that opportunity to have come into a more regulated place, or to be more self-aware, like, you know, all these kind of things that we have as takeaways. Really, breath is such a foundation to be able to do that. So yeah, those are two ways you can think of it. I hope that helps. Okay. Yeah, thanks everybody. Great questions. All right, so just taking a quick peek at the time. Let's do this next activity all together, and we're just going to move through one round so you can get an idea of like the purpose of this and hopefully be able to play with this on your own. So going back to our idea of the yoga tool belt and the flexibility and the adaptability, and, you know, really how we can continually shift in order to meet our students where they are. One way to do this is by modifying our sequence, so our set of yoga poses that we've chosen. So here's what we're going to do together. There are 3 poses that I want us to think about. So dragon, twisting dragon, and crescent lunge. Let me show you those real fast. Oh my gosh, don't trip. Okay. So crescent lunge is standing. You're on the ball of your back foot. So sometimes there's confusion between crescent and warrior 1. So the biggest difference is that you're on the ball of your back foot for crescent. And then in warrior 1, your back foot is actually flat on the floor, hips are forward, arms are up. Okay. So the pose we're doing is crescent. We also have dragon or a low lunge. And then twisting dragon, let me show this side so you can see better, is a twist to the side. Okay, so those are the 3 poses that we're going to have in mind. Already, those poses have particular benefits. So if we were to open up our children's guide and look at the physical benefits, the mental benefits, they're already going to kind of have benefits we want to consider. Let's say you want to create a sequence. We have 3 poses so far. Let's say we want to create a sequence of 6 poses using these 3, and we want to make sure it's restorative. So the reason I throw restorative there is because, I mean, even me just doing those 3 poses really fast, I'm like, oh, a little more out of breath. They're quite challenging because you're changing levels. To me, they're all very energizing. So how do we use other poses or reorder the poses in order to shift and make this more of a strengthening sequence? Okay, so I'm going to give us just 2 minutes of clock time for you to write down some notes. If you want to stand up and actually physically do it and work it out, all good. And then in 2 minutes, I'll ask you to share your ideas. Okay, so come up with a sequence of 6 poses using those 3, and the goal is to be restorative.
Quick question, Harmony. You said restorative and then you also said strengthening. Are those 2 kind of in the same category? Did I like understand that right?
Yeah, sorry if I used both. So our goal is to be restorative, meaning like more calming, more restful. But these poses that I listed are typically strengthening poses. So that's sort of the challenge there.
Okay, got it. I understand.
Okay. So let's just take about 1 more minute. Okay, it's really fast. I know it's a really fast turnaround. So wherever you are, whatever you've created thus far, so let's do 2 options. If you feel more comfortable sharing it through the chat, please do. If you would like to speak it and I can be the body and sort of demonstrate for a few people to see, you can write your name in the chat. We're just going to take a couple of minutes for this. Okay, Bernice, crescent, dragon, twisting dragon right side, twisting dragon left, dragon, crescent. Cool. So kind of like a moving down and then slowly moving back up. Yeah, Francesca. Okay. Happy to be your body.
Okay. I realized I didn't choose sides, but okay. So
no worries. And feel free, Francesca, to just like name it. You don't have to teach it. Just give me the pose name.
Great. Dragon. Twisting dragon. Rock. Table. Mountain.
Ooh, how am I going to get to mountain?
Oh.
Yes, but how am I going to get there?
We have lunge, low lunge. Can you get, and then can your, and then can you get to mountain from there? Can you stand up from there? Okay, mountain and then crescent.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Francesca.
Sorry, that was so choppy.
No, not at all. I put you on the spot because, of course, yeah, like with transitions in mind, you could totally take your time and get to standing. But I because you were doing so well, I was like, let me just throw this in and see where she might take this.
Okay. So
yeah.
Take the lunge. Okay.
Yeah, there's so many options. Down, you could have moved into downward dog, forward fold, rolled up to mountain. Okay. Got some other ones coming in. These are great. So I hope everyone's spending just a little bit of time looking at the chat too to get some different ideas. Let's see. Oh, Constance. Want to unmute? I'm going to face this way, change it up.
Okay, so I started off in mountain. And then at the top of your mat. And then into crescent. There you go. And then down to dragon. And then twisting dragon. And then both hands on the ground for table. And then rock.
Yeah, nice. So that's cool because between Constance and Francesca, we saw moving from standing to the floor and from floor to standing. Thanks, Constance. Okay, just checking, make sure there's no other names. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of variations. So adding in some cat-cows, I've seen a few times, lots of rock, using transitional poses like downward dog, thinking about when to switch sides, thinking about the role of theming and cueing. So softening the breath. Yeah, great. So hopefully this is a really fast version of this activity. Our conversation was so full earlier, so I don't want to rush us for our last piece, but hopefully this just gives you yet another opportunity to think about, you know, what is your intention for the class? Do you want it to be a strengthening sequence, a balancing sequence, a restorative sequence? So like whatever your intention is, if it aligns with, you know, what you hope your students will take away, the power of sort of really being mindful in how you put the poses together can make all the difference. Yeah, cool. And then just a couple of last things to think about with respect to restorative pauses. So if you're in, let's see, so if I start in rock, table, dragon, twisting dragon, back to table, back to rock, breathe there for like 3 to 4 breaths. Then the other side, table, dragon, twisting dragon, table, rock. Again, another pause. Versus, right, if I keep going, it's going to be more energizing. But if I kind of come back to that restorative posture, like a forward fold or like rock pose, and I take my time with that deep breathing, it's definitely going to create a different feeling around it. Okay, thanks everyone. I appreciate all of your ideas. There's some really wonderful poses, sequences. All right, so I'd like to leave this last chunk of time to quickly, hopefully quickly, discuss 2 things that have popped into your to-do list this week. So the first thing is your second part 2 Flipgrid exercise is now going to be assigned, and that will be due next week. So the Flipgrid exercise this time around asks you to teach 4 poses. So that's sort of the essence of what you're doing. If it has been working for you, you're invited to build upon that first exercise you did back in week 2. So if you've already taken the time to think of your theme and concept, you started kind of hashing out what your lesson plan would be, then the invitation there is to just like continue and now think of a sequence and then choose 4 poses of your larger sequence. So two reasons here. One is that you may end up using this lesson plan as your final project. So if that's the case, you know, now you're able to move through the entire lesson plan and have a good draft, and then you can still practice it within the Flipgrid exercise to still get feedback. Okay. But know that if you decide to move in a different direction, that's totally okay as well. So just to reiterate, the video is only 4 poses of your sequence. Okay, it's going to feel weird, like you're just sort of like you're literally jumping into it. So if I had a series of 10 poses, I'm just going to choose 4 of them. What we do ask is that you're focusing on developmental cues, languaging that's relevant to the age or grade group you've chosen to work with. So like if I'm watching, I'm like, oh yeah, this is probably clearly for preschool, or oh, this sounds like it might be more for 4th and 5th graders. And then the other big thing, and I really want to spend a little extra time emphasizing this, is how are you drawing awareness back to your theme and concept? So we don't want to just introduce our theme and concept in the discussion and then never talk about it again. Our students need continual immersion into this world of our takeaway in order for them to really find those deep connections. So if my theme is focus and my concept is, how does yoga help me focus? 1, I'm probably going to choose poses that are going to really emphasize focus. And then 2, during key moments in my sequence, I'm going to remind students to think about, they can even share or reflect on focus and what it means to focus. Okay. Questions about the Flipgrid exercise or clarifications? Yeah, Bernice.
So just so that I'm sure, what you were just explaining, so do you want us, we have our 4 poses. So as we're speaking, the 4 poses, we're not repeating them. It's just one pose after the other. Because when you say just to keep reminding them and bring it back, I'm thinking if it's only 4 poses, then we're repeating those 4 poses, or is that not right?
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, thanks, Bernice. So you're not repeating the 4 poses, but you are finding key moments within your poses to talk about the theme and concept. So let's say your 4 poses are mountain, tree, star, mountain, tree, eagle, mountain. Those are my 4 poses.
Okay.
So during tree, I'm going to want to pause and remind our students that how they can use their focus during tree pose to help them balance, to remind them to breathe.
Okay.
Again, during eagle, I might have another way that I talk about, like yoga is a really wonderful way for us to practice strengthening our focus, because poses like eagle pose actually do just that.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Happy to clarify.
Harmony, do you know if on our Flipgrid exercise where we submitted, like I submitted a little video, I don't remember what week it was, where we did what our theme and concept was. Does that video stay in Flipgrid or does it like disappear? Do we still have access to it?
Yeah, thanks, Tensha. I have access to it. You do not have access to it, which is a big bummer. And it's just a part of the way that Flipgrid is set up. So anytime you submit a video, it disappears from the platform. If you downloaded it and saved it to your computer, then of course, then you have it. But yeah, if you didn't, then it's in the abyss.
It's in the cosmos. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so great. As long as there's no other questions, we can always circle back to this too, like once we sign off, if anyone still has any questions. But all the information, just like you all did so lovely with the week 2, part 1 exercise, all the instructions are there. There's a little video demonstration, so you should be able to find everything. Okay, the next part that I want to talk about is your final project preparation. So you might have noticed in week 6, if you're in the academy, that there was also the sort of initial introduction to getting ready for your final project. So this is, if you're curious where this is, it's in like one of the, it's like the very last video, I think, that you can watch for week 6 in the academy. So after you get through that like mountainous amount of poses and breathing, it's at the very end. The other thing I want to show you, and these will be in the follow-up email, are 2 support guides that you can use around questions for your final project. So we tend to get a lot of very similar questions, of course. So what we did was we took the time to put together these like 1-page documents. Let me share screen so that a lot of those initial questions can be answered really clearly and effectively. So the final video project, this is one document, and it answers questions about, it kind of gives you like a checklist of, you know, the steps that you've taken in order to be prepared to do the video. Questions or clarifications around the delivery. So thinking about environment, childhood development, how you are seen in the video, audio, like all of that kind of stuff. There's also a section about participants. So if you have any questions or concerns around having people or not having people in your video, that's there for you as well. And then of course, if you have questions, you can follow up. But this really outlines all that you need to consider for the video. And then there's also one more document. Oh, this bar gets in the way. Hold on a second to minimize it. Okay, there we go. So we also have this frequently asked questions document. Sometimes as we start to close out the course, we also get questions around next steps. So there's information about the RCYT program here in this frequently asked question, which also refers back to the final project. So that will be for you to have a peek at as well. So both of these will be in the follow-up email. Okay, and just to be really efficient, my friends, I'm going to send them to you in the chat right now. So there's one. And, oh, which one was that? Okay, and here's the second one. Okay. So the biggest thing that you need to start thinking about right now in terms of preparations for the future is what your final lesson plan is going to look like. So before you get into the video and all of that, you do need to submit a final lesson plan for approval. And so in thinking about your final lesson plan, I kind of mentioned this earlier, that you could totally it could be a continuation of what you've already spent time and energy for the Flipgrid exercises, because technically then you will have done your time in, your discussion, 4 of your poses. So you kind of already started building towards that. However, if you're like, no, I just want to start from fresh, that's totally okay too. You also have the option for your final project to choose a pre-made lesson plan. So in week 1, you had downloads for all of our sample lesson plans for the different grade groups. You could choose one of those if you just, want to give it a go. That's an option for you to do as well, especially if you're pressed for time or you're feeling maybe a little bit not 100% in creating your own. That's there for you. Okay, and the final lesson plan, it's actually not due until week 7. So we sort of start to give you a little bit of a, hey, this is coming up, but it's not actually due until week 7, meaning I'll officially assign it Monday next week during our meetup together, our week 7 meetup, and then you have that whole next week to turn it in. Okay, so between now and next week, you're doing your exercise. And then next week and the week after, you're focused on your lesson plan. Okay. So as I mentioned, I'll send those documents in the follow-up. That's kind of it for the initial information. We'll spend a little bit of time as well next week diving into, once you've had a chance to look through those documents, kind of get an idea of where you want to go. I'll leave some space next week as well to talk about any clarifying questions. But otherwise, that's it for today, everybody. So yeah, I'd love to, I've just got about 2 minutes. If there are any questions, feel free to ask me now. Astara, so the lesson plan will get sent, yes, the lesson plan will get sent to me. So harmony@yogaed.com is where you'll turn in your final lesson plan for approval.
Do you want that in the, are we filling out the outline, or can we just free form it in an email?
Oh yeah, good question. Thanks, Astara. So if you have access to the PDF and are able to work with the PDF, that's great. If not, totally understand. You can create a Word document, a Google document, or yeah, if nothing else, put it into the body of an email. I just need to know very clearly, like theme, concept, time in. So make sure you just have all the same headings and any other notes that I would need to make sure that it's all clear. And make sure, the biggest thing too is to make sure that you're including the grade group, because that's really important. Okay, Tensha?
Hi, quick question. On the final project, I was reviewing it yesterday and it says between 8 to 10 poses. But when I look at our sample lesson plans, there's, if I count the poses, are like 14. Are we counting like doubles? Like if you do mountain, but go back to it, or like the little transition poses? I'm kind of confused about the number of poses, especially when we have little transition ones in there.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, Tensha. So just so everyone knows, the sample lesson plans, when you do take a peek at those, you're going to see that they're more closely probably aligned for about an hour class, 45 minutes to an hour. So given that, you'll definitely want to modify those sections. You'll see some like suggested time frames there, so you'll want to modify accordingly. As far as my suggestion, we say 8 to 10 poses, meaning, so Tensha, to be really clear, 8 to 10 unique poses. So if I say tree, it's assumed that I'll do tree on both sides, whether that means I do tree on both sides right away or I come back to tree later. That would be like one pose. And then if I know that between table and mountain, I'm going to do downward dog, that would be a transitional pose. So typically you end up with more than 8 to 10, but that would be a good starting point. And then ultimately for everyone, practice, like go through it and see how long it takes you, right? Because you might realize, ooh, I need to trim down some poses, or I need to add more. I got through that in like 5 minutes. Okay, yeah. I do see one more question, but I also want to honor time. So if you feel complete, thank you. Feel free to sign off. I'll see you next week. Otherwise, I'll keep answering questions. Debbie? Oh, you're on mute.
Hi. When is the final video due?
Like the final, yeah. So everything, the final is due, I just wrote this down. Where did I write it down? June 16th. Okay, hold on, now I have to look at my calendar. Someone probably knows and can put it in the chat. So let's see, week 6 is today, 7, 8, 1, 2. Oh, I was right, June 16th.
June 16th, okay.
Mhm.
And I have one more question. I have the opportunity, I teach at a yoga studio, so I have an opportunity to invite some of our members' children to sign up. How many participants would you recommend for doing this final project?
Ooh, that's a good question. Debbie, I would defer to your comfort, because if you've kind of been doing this or you're sort of familiar with the studio, then I would, or like if you have experience working with children, especially of a particular age, I would say that you probably have your comfort zone. But if not,
comfort zone with adults, but children, different story. So I was going to put it to like maximum of 10.
And what age group are you working with?
Your suggestion as far as what have you seen?
What age group are you working with?
I'm going to work with 6 to 12-year-olds.
Okay. Yeah, 10 is totally doable.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely. If it was preschoolers and it was your first time with a preschool class, I would maybe say, 5.
Yeah, I said to my studio managers, I said, I'm not going to invite like pre-K to K. I need more experience first before I go there. And then.
And Debbie, that's all it is. It's just experience and exposure, because I mean, gosh, preschool teachers handle 30 plus students every single day, all day. So, big round of applause to all preschool teachers, but also 6th grade teachers and 12th grade teachers. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just the practice, the time. And like, let's also not forget, it really just depends on the group. You can have a group that 5 kids feels like 15 kids. And you can have a group where 25 kids feels like 5 kids. So, I mean, it really, really depends. But ultimately, it's got to be like your comfort zone, especially because, this might be the first time you're doing it. Mm-hmm. My only other suggestion, you can take it or leave it, and it's a bonus for them, is do a practice, do like a rehearsal. Can you do 2 classes where like you invite them in, maybe you do a lesson with them, they get to know you a little bit, you have an opportunity to kind of like try it out with them, and then the next lesson, that's the one you record, or you record both and then you're like, oh, this was the better one.
Okay.
Up to you.
It also depends if you have an assistant, well, for the younger preschool kids, assistant that can help guide them, or if you're doing a parent-child class also.
Yeah, if parents are involved.
I call it amongst us crowd control, but I don't say that in front of the parents, or the adults.
Yeah,
that's a big
if there's that's a good point, Kathy. Or if they're like, and then are they taking the class with their children, or are they observing? And then we got to think about all those things. Feel free to reach out to me as well, Debbie, via email if like certain logistics come up, and I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. I see a question from Astara. Yes, we still have our meetups on Memorial Day. And Diana?
What's the best does the phone the best at filming? What, technology wise is the
Yeah.
best? Would you you found to be?
I've used kind of both. I've used my phone for things. I've also used my computer for things. Ultimately, we want to support, whatever you have access to. So I would say one thing I have noticed, and we recommend this in our tech place within those documents, is if you are doing it on a phone, it can be helpful if you have it available to transfer it to a computer or a desktop and then upload it from there. It's a little easier, a little smoother.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's just because I wasn't sure what would be the best to do.
Yeah, no, of course. Well, and it's one of those questions where like there's so many different devices and possibilities. It's really hard to say which one.
I know.
Yeah.
But if you don't have access to all that, I'm just curious if the phone would.
Yeah,
would work.
Phones have totally worked.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Diana. All right, everybody, I'm gonna sign off. It's been lovely. I'll see you all next week. Bye.